This is from Diana Liverman, University of Arizona and Oxford University. In a global economic system where many goods are traded with their embodied carbon and water, how can Denmark really be carbon neutral, and how can countries and firms really account for this in their sustainable development goals?
We, in our commission, I have to say, we limited our advice to the laws and the law system of Denmark. So it is not truly carbon neutral. It is the focus is because we are importing, or we're importing plastics that we don't make ourselves and so on. I think that kind of accounting chip will come into the picture. Right now, what we're saying is we're removing fossil fuels from the heat, the electricity, and the transport system domestically by 2050. So, okay, it's not going all the way, but it's a pretty big step compared to most people.
Thanks, Catherine. I have a second question. I'm afraid I can't quite read the handwriting of the name, but it's a colleague from the Institute of Atomic Physics in Moscow. Question is, 2012 is the last year of the Kyoto Protocol. How many countries succeeded in meeting their targets, and what's the cumulative excess of 1990 levels? For the EU, we will meet our targets. However, we're going to have to buy some credits, and the good news is that the price is going down. So for Italy, whose financials don't seem to show where they're going to buy it from, we don't know. But for Spain, they're looking for about 400 million euros worth of credits. So it's an interesting time, let's put it that way. But one way or another, I think the challenge is on for countries not just to meet the Kyoto Protocol, quite honestly. It's what I was saying. Going into a second period is not business as usual. We have to think of different ways to reduce our emissions.
Okay, so this is Adam Powell from the University of Life Sciences and Natural Resources in Vienna. How do we overcome the issue of the fact that democracy demands regular elections and the temporal disconnect between politics and business and science, which Bjorn referred to?
I'm afraid that's coming over Bjorn, yes.
Well, I don't think we can throw out democracy. This is part of the system that we have to operate in. I do not advocate for any other system, and I don't have an answer to the question, what does that mean? I said in the earlier panel, I think we have, between science that you represent and business, we have to do a much better job in explaining to the politicians what the solutions are, not only the options.
Thank you very much. Now we have a second question.
Okay, this is Christian Kirchner from the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and this is for Catherine. Do you think we need to reevaluate the current paradigm of economic growth? Do companies need to grow, and if yes, why?
I think we maybe need to reevaluate some of the criteria we use to measure growth by, but as Björn pointed out a moment ago, there are too many people on this planet that are hungry and don't have enough resources. So I think we do have to have growth. We just need to think it through a little bit better. Now, our real currency is actually natural resources. Our ancestors knew that, and when they bought and sold from each other, they brought fire, or they brought precious stones or gold or whatever, and we've gotten much smarter, and we use money. How many people in this room, or how many businesses, would use more money than absolutely necessary to get a good or a service? Of course not. How many people in this room, or how many businesses, use more resources or services of the planet than absolutely necessary in order to get the standard of living that we have today? And if anyone doesn't put their hand up, they're lying. So the point is, we're measuring growth in the wrong way. But of course we have to have growth.
Okay, now I did it together. Read them both.
Okay, and these are both for Naki, one from Daniel Weiss, from the Israeli Institute of Technology. What do you think of the following statement? The modern equivalent of slavery can be robotics, releasing people from simple jobs. And then you have another one, which is understanding the dark side of human nature. So greed, corruption, environmental crime. To what extent will we need to criminalize these behaviors and enforce strong mechanisms, as we had in the Anti-Slavery Squadron? Oh, sorry, that was from Michael Platzer with the Academic Council on United Nations.
Thank you. In the interest of the lateness of time, I'll try to be brief, but these are very good questions. Well, on the first one, I think this is a major challenge of the new technologies that I think might be converging to enhance human performance, if I may put it that way. I mean, we already have that little bit with the smartphones, with the virtuality of our life, but I'm sure that many of the physical toils of humanity can be replaced with the convergence of the new technologies. But I think there is a darker side to that, and I think we have to really think about that very hard as a society. Namely, one of our problems, and I think this is what Catherine was talking a little bit about, one of our problems is that we are wasting resources, and if we are going that pathway, it cannot be resource wasteful. Many of the solutions, I think this is a generic statement, many of the solutions we seem to think should be coming from the supply side, and I think that's wrong. I think that the fundamental transformation means that also our lifestyles, our behavior have to change. So to the extent that these new technologies can promote a more efficient behavior, then I think they have a great promise. But I think that fixing everything on the supply side, more energy, more water, more materials, that will not work. And that's related to the second question. I mean, we are, through our behavior, producing huge amount of what economists call externalities that are not priced, they're not taxed, and certainly that needs to happen. I think we have to see that no different than the income tax. One could even go so much further and say we should have no income tax. We should be taxing the things we don't want and the labor we do want.
Okay. I think we'll come back to that before we close this session, because incentives as well as giving people criminal proceedings is something we need to talk about. But now, Barry, we have a question for you.
And this is from Anton Golovonov, I apologize, from Asidis. Is there any potential for fusion?
It seems to be one of these challenging problems that it is always another decade away, and that has been true for several decades. And I think that that really is a great challenge. I think that we have not yet fully exploited the wind and solar aspect. There are large areas of the planet for which solar is almost a problem, and that is they're the great deserts of the world. And I think this is an enormous resource. Second thing is, in the state that I now live in, Oklahoma, the fastest growing energy business, and this is right in the heart of the natural gas area of the United States, is wind power. I really think that there is an enormous capability in terms of scale, but it is going to require a challenge. And I look to that as a more doable approach than fusion at this stage.
Thank you very much, Varian. Well, you've done a great job at giving us some questions. I'm going to now turn to our panel and see if we can get some concluding comments, because we heard fragments of what this transformation might look like. We heard about stewardship from Catherine. We heard about thinking about the timing and how business needs to be thinking in a different way, different partnerships to speed up the pace of change. We heard about some kind of fingers in the wind here. There's a lot of uncertainty, I'm afraid, Berian, that you're really telling us about. And I'm sure those of you who read the newspapers about our colleagues in Italy will know just exactly how far uncertainty can get us into deep trouble. So I'm going to ask each of the panel members now to really try to now crystallize out what is that transforming principle? What is it that we're trying to achieve? Because the idea that we get stuck in the practicalities is very appealing for scientists. We kind of like to, oh, right, we're going to leave here and we're going to go and do something. But what is the one big idea that you really want to leave with the audience right now? And I'm going to start with Berian, please.
I think we either have to think about how we would adapt to a very different world where CO2 was at the 800 parts per million, or we're going to have to think of technologies that would actually strip CO2 out of the atmosphere. And I believe if we commercialize that in the right way, that there might be real breakthroughs in the way in which we could perhaps approach the carbon question. I also think that we really need to recognize that the color of money is green. And there is nothing wrong with making money in a manner that advances green jobs.
Bjorn, please. Thank you very much.
Well, I think the big issue for me is resource efficiency. And the good news is that we have a lot of technologies and knowledge to drive resource efficiency in a dramatic way. If we look at the energy side, and Naki talked about the demand side, but when you look at the International Energy Agency and their World Environmental Outlook, if you look at the reductions of carbon emissions to 2030, it's about 2/3 that is supposed to come from energy efficiency. And the majority of all of these issues is on the demand side. It's not on the supply side. It's how we utilize energy. And it's basically then concentrated to 3 areas. 40% of the problem is in buildings. And the building market is not working to drive energy efficiency, even if it's profitable for society, because it's a very fragmented value chain. The second issue is with land transport. And people want their big cars, even if we put higher prices on gasoline. It's also a market that is not working. And the third issue is connected to electricity generation. And there we have all kinds of market failures with prices. There is hardly one country in this world that has a market price on electricity. It's a political price. So for me, the issue is about resource efficiency. And we can do many things in the short term because we have the knowledge, provided that we get a proper framework around this that supports actions and also brings some profit to those that are doing the job.
Thank you. Now I'm going to just put Catherine to the end. Ladies last, I think we're going to do. Naki. I'm going to give the last word to women. Ha, Naki.
My view is, and that's connected to the earlier sessions, is that we have spent the last 40 years, since it's a 40th anniversary in general, last 40 years to talk about the crisis we need to avoid and the dangers of continuing developments without a change. I think we have to change the narrative to looking at what are the opportunities. So the vision of the opportunities. So not talk about the crisis of the old, but the benefits of the new. And I think this story is not told well yet. I mean, I personally believe, and that's certainly a finding of the Global Energy Assessment, that there are many reasons not connected to climate to do the transformation in the energy system that would bring the climate co-benefits almost at no extra costs. However, to do that, and I think that's the second part of my message, we do need to change how our society deals with these issues. I mean, to put it very, very simply, to be resource saving and efficient, you need to be capital intensive. I mean, there is no way around it. I mean, we have to invest. And this is what doesn't work. Bjorn has said it. Financial sector imposes time frames of months, maybe years, and we have to think in terms of decades and perhaps even a century. So this is what needs to be changed. So human behavior at the end use and also our business model, how we make the decisions.
Thanks, Naki. Catherine.
Thanks, Jackie. I agree that there are many low-hanging fruits in terms of resource efficiency and energy efficiency. I agree that we don't have to apologize for the fact that money is green, and in situations where we can make money out of it, this is a good idea. But this is not business as usual, but now we're going to make money on the environment. I have to say, in Denmark, one of the reasons we've been able to make the energy plan that we have is that between 12 and 13% of our export portfolio is made up of energy efficiency technology and green energy. And that makes a huge difference when you have industry behind you in this kind of a move. So I agree that these are the low-hanging fruits we should be looking at, but I think we have to accept that we're struggling with something bigger. We're struggling with the fact that we have to learn how to share global resources when we don't have a global governance structure. We're using the UN by default, and it may be the right organ. It may be by evolution, it may be what we use for this kind of governance, but it wasn't built for the purpose, so we're going to have to do some evolution there. And I think it's also very important that this is not a gloom and doom story. I don't think we get anywhere with gloom and doom. On the other hand, I do believe that it's important that we make the narrative actually focus around the fact that there are limits to how much humans can extract from the system without jeopardizing our very habitat. And if we don't recognize that and we don't make that our narrative, we're not going to get our priorities right, and yes, we're going to waste money. And the best story or the best evidence I can come with there is around biomass. If you look at 3 weeks ago in Science, there was an article showing how much, or arguing how much more biomass humans can appropriate from the planet. It turns out, according to this analysis, to be about 5 petagrams per year, 5 gigatons per year, which is the equivalent of about 40% of our energy demands today. And we know that energy demands are going to increase by something like 80% to 2050. What this is telling us is we should be developing biofuels for airplanes because they don't have an alternative. And other places where we are using biomass today, we'll find cheaper alternatives. So unless we admit that the supplies are limited, we're going to make bad business decisions. So that should be our new narrative.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Well, we're coming to the end, and I'd like just to give a few wrap-up comments, if I might. It's very interesting. Today's carbon price is hovering, if you buy CERs, at about €1. If you buy EUAs, it's about €7. Probably what it should be is the colour of green, which is €100. Who has a €100 note? I think it's green. Yeah, I think it is. So we really have these price signals coming at us in very, very different packages in different ways. And that is part of the problem, I think, that all of you have spoken about. That price signal is going to stay with us. We're not going to get rid of markets overnight, but it's about how to mobilize them in very different ways. And if we think about the last 40 years since the IIASA has been with us, we've seen huge transformations in institutions, in people, but actually the markets have just kept on slogging. And what we've come from is a synthetic century where we've built around fossil fuels an entire fabric of our society. But as we go into the next century, perhaps what we're doing is moving into a biological century, one based on bio-based buildings made out of bamboo, completely different fabric and materials to essentially equip us in a very different way. And I think genuinely what we have missed is, whilst we've invested in the financial capitals and the accounting systems of GDP, we have not equipped ourselves well enough to keep a full accounting register of natural capital, human, social, and all the other capitals around us. And in a way, that's what makes governments work, it's what makes businesses work. So yes, it's quite boring, but it's probably one of the motors and the engines that's below the surface that really tells us what are the debts that we've accumulated, the late lesson, and what's the early warnings, what are we running out of, and how do we do that? So I don't want to give away all the government sort of paraphernalia as we go off to go and actively manage the planet. We still have to take quite a lot with us.